last week, really happy with last week because last week we highlighted a few names. Carlos Dunlap, who was really just a good real life contributor, but turned into a fancy contributor this past week as a good streamer, 1.5 sacks, 4 tackles, and a TFL. I mentioned Jerry Hughes, who went off on Thursday Night Football, had 2 sacks, a few TFLs, was lighting it up on the screen. We also threw out Derek Brown, who left the game 30% of the snaps, with only 30% of the snaps, left with an illness. A little bit disappointing there, but what can you do? We also mentioned Draymond Jones, who was on bye, so we will see how he does next week. This week, I am chasing the same theme that I went with Jerry Hughes, and same theme I've done with a few other guys. I'm chasing the matchups. I'm chasing the Colts, Brandon, because the Colts have one of the worst offensive lines I have seen since, worse than the Steelers last year, worse than the Jets in the prime. This is abysmal. This is a team that's allowed 35 sacks in 8 games this year, or I guess in 9 games now. That's, if you want to do the math on that, that's almost 4 sacks a game, right? If I passed algebra or whatever. So, that's the recipe I want to chase. And the Raiders have not been able to get home too much this year. It's Max Crosby and no one else. But I'm willing to take a chance on guys like Chandler Jones, who have been nothing but unimpressive. Even Cleveland Farrell, who has he's logged a few QB hits this year. He only hovers around that 50% snap mark, but still someone that I'm willing to stream because the matchup is so juicy. And I do think the Raiders have enough juice to get home against this Colts team that is just not that good. And Jeff Saturday, as great of a name as he may be, as weird of a story as he may be, is not going to solve those issues on a 1-week basis. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I don't think he is either, unless, he's beefed up and he's going to play offensive line again for the Colts. But the Colts gave up, I believe, 9 sacks to the Patriots, something crazy. And I know Josh Uche had 3 sacks. So Chandler Jones has not done a lot, but how bad that line is, I do tend to agree. I would think they would try to double Crosby, and then everyone else will have more one-on-one opportunities. But I think there's opportunity for sacks, and you got to imagine, especially if Jonathan Taylor's back, they're going to run the ball a lot, so that's more opportunity for tackles. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, and that's a great point to even throw out in defensive tackle league, especially a little bit deeper ones maybe. Bilal Nichols, who's been playing around 75% snaps for this Raiders defense, will be the one sure thing in terms of one person we can guarantee snaps within that interior defensive line. The Colts will try to run the ball because they cannot pass the ball, especially now they're adding a former offensive lineman as their head coach. I gotta imagine they're going to try to reestablish the run with or without Jonathan Taylor. Could be a good day for Bilal Nichols. Nice little name to keep in mind. Someone that is available in every single league, I'm sure. Let's throw out another name. How about Javon Hargrave? So I'm a Steeler fan here, right? So I'm very familiar with Javon Hargrave, someone who began his career with the Steelers and was great with the Steelers. But in true Pittsburgh fashion, they didn't want to pay him. He went off to Philadelphia, had an okay year, but has really been coming on of late, has been just excellent for the Eagles, this undefeated team. He has 5 sacks in the last 2 weeks, and a lot of them came this past week as well, in much needed situations. So 5 sacks in 2 weeks, 15 tackles in 2 weeks, 12 of which were solos. He's worth a stash, if not, those are splash games you're not going to get every single week because they're defensive tackles. The ceilings tend not to be that high with guys like Javon Hargrave, but he is popping off, and it's the type of guy that when you're chasing defensive tackle points, I'll ride the hot hand. And he grabbed 3 of those sacks against the Texans. The Eagles have a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the way, and he's not going to go away because he's been that good for them. So I like Javon Hargrave as a potential rest of season play, streaming based off matchups. I think you do that again this week against Washington with a quarterback that, doesn't exactly handle pressure the best as well, as much as we do like Taylor Heineke in the fantasy circles. How about you, Brent?
No, I agree, and that Philadelphia defense is doing very well. And since they are getting up on teams, they're going to get more sacks, with that pressure and everything. The only thing I worry about is, as a defensive tackle in Hargrave, when they do get up, that means teams might not run the ball as much. So he's probably going to be, like you said, a boom or bust. But the Eagle, pretty much everything on the Eagles is running well right now. And against the Commanders, he should get plenty of opportunities to do some of that because Brian Robinson likes to just run right straight into the line, and Ron Rivera wants to keep playing him, even though Antonio Gibson's better. So you probably get some tackles there. So I agree. But defensive tackles, if you're not getting the main couple guys, it's so hit or miss. So, but he's definitely worth the just kind of stab out there to play him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Good to see a DJ Duvernay. First time stopping in. Always love to see a first time viewer. Are we doing regular fantasy questions? If you're saying offense, we get into offense on the second half of the show. And of course, if you have any questions about offense or defense, this goes for everyone, of course. Be sure to drop them in the chat. We'll be going through it at the end of defense, at the end of offense. We're always just here to have a good time. Keep dropping those in. Keep talking in the chat. I'd love to see it. And I'll answer your question, Infinite, about our records in some of my leagues because it's always on the top of my mind. The last defensive lineman I want to throw out there is, of course, Justin Houston. So I am shocked that this is happening as much as it is. I'm not sure what compound V, that Jamaica Boys reference here, that Justin Houston is consumed at this late stage of his career. The guy to be playing on third downs only, really. That's what he did last year. It's what he does this year. And he's still getting a sack per game. It's really tough for me to trust it. But he has 8.5 sacks in 6 games, which is an insane efficiency rate. He has that role locked up because he's been incredibly good for it for this Ravens team that finds themselves in need of a pass rusher more often than not. It's really been an underwhelming unit, to be honest. And he got it done again. He got another, bone-crushing sack in the second half of that game on Monday. And listen, I mean, if you're in the need of, somebody, assuming he has defensive lineman eligibility, I don't want him at linebacker. It's why not? You chase the right hot hand with these sacks. You could easily be a Robert Quinn of this year, of a guy that, isn't incredibly impressive on every single play, but he's going to get sacks. It's just what he does. He finds his way to 1 per game. And, with a couple tackles and a potential splash 2, why not? Why not, Brandon? Why not? Tell me why not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. Like a couple games ago, I didn't even realize Justin Houston was still on the Ravens.
Yeah, fair.
And I've been watching, and he's been playing well. I am a little cautious. Don't know how it's going to really work out, but with Tyus Bowser coming back,
yes,
and David Ojabo coming off the IR, it's probably going to take him a few weeks. But that might change it a little bit. But who knows? Because now that Roquan Smith's in there, they're going to focus more blocking towards him. So that might even open up more. So you're really going on, if he gets these stats, because he doesn't get, a high volume of, significant plays. But I would like to see what the return of these other defensive players really does. Overall, it's going to make this Baltimore defense better. That has kind of struggled early in the season. But you saw last week, they were pretty lights out against the Saints team that had been playing better as of late.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see David Ojabo return. I really hope he is what he was, because that injury was terrible, the timing of it, and I hope he is the prospect that we hoped he was going to be. I just on a side note there. But yeah, those are our defensive lineman pickups for this week.